And we are live. Welcome, everyone. My name is Felipe from the Instantly team. I have more than 10 years of experience sending cold emails. At Instantly, we have more than 25,000 B2B clients. I have here the great Josh Whitfield. He's an AI expert who has sent more than 4 million emails using AI. So you will definitely learn a thing or two from this live webinar. How are you today, Josh?
I'm doing good, Felipe. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining today. I'm great. Very excited, to be honest, to share some of your experience over the past year. And let's go straight into it. I think maybe it will be great before we even jump into some of the trends for 2025 that we talk about what has happened during 2024, any wins that you had on 2024, so people can understand a little bit about your background. So yeah, anything you would like to share about last year with your agency, anything that worked for you during 2024?
Yeah, so 2023 was for us really getting into understanding how to use Instantly well and get results for ourselves. 2024 is when we transitioned really into getting results for clients, which is a completely different expectation. And so as we started to bring on clients, we started to bring on some enterprise clients. So then you talk about CRM integrations, sales teams, SDRs, AEs, right? And in some of those cases, we manage those replies for them directly and instantly. And others, we take like the webhook feature of instantly and we push that directly to their CRM, right, through an integration. So I think that was a huge change for us because the expectation is completely different from the client when they have a sales team that is sitting there depending on your replies, right? Secondarily, I would say that there has been a lot of volatility and deliverability in 2024, right? People were talking about the presidential election in the U.S. and I guess it's not uncommon for some of my clients overseas to ask me who I was voting for, which was a complete shock for me because we don't, there's kind of taboo. But the answer to that question for me was always whatever candidate brings back deliverability for Microsoft, right? So at the end of the day, that feels like what 2024 has been like, right? If you guys probably remember a couple months ago, it was. I don't think we could hit a Google outbox with a Microsoft account to save our life, and then literally 90 days later, it's the complete opposite, right? So this
Right.
business is changing. You have to adapt. You guys know that as you brought in features to support that, right? And I think it's getting harder, but I think it's getting harder for a good reason because people just forget that, about every other month, we're getting notifications from some company whose our ID was compromised, right? Or
Right.
people forget that if you are a Fortune 500 chief technology officer, chief information officer, the biggest thing you are scared of right now is a ransom attack that hijacks your data, and then you have to tell 10,000 or 100,000 of your customers that their data was compromised. So I believe that's the vast majority of reason why it gets harder and that happens. You got to understand that. We just got to do a better job and adapt to that.
Right. Now that makes absolute sense. I think you pretty much have summarized like how crazy 2020 to 2024 was. Um, and honestly, like I've been doing call outbound for 10 years, and every single year I see something happening and someone like screaming, "Cold email is dead." But I think it's only that for those who are not willing to innovate and adapt. And I think that's the same for any industry, whether you're running ads or whatever you're doing, right? Things are constantly changing, just like we as humans are changing. And I think the biggest change probably that will happen in 2025, at least from my perspective, before we even get into it, and I think we're seeing it now in 2024, is that people's attention span is shorter than ever. And as a result, if you're sending like anything generic, like a generic copy, it's just not going to resonate with people because people's attention is everywhere. They're like either they want to watch Netflix or they want to see social media. So you're not just competing in terms of emailing with other agencies or other companies who are sending cold emails. You are competing literally with everyone out there who is doing marketing, right? So I think the big question here is how do you stand out from that, and also how do you make sure you land on the inbox, of course? And that obviously comes down heavily to copy. Of course, you have data, you have like deliverability and all of those components. But I think standing out is going to become more and more relevant than ever. So I remember you mentioned to me that you have sent around 4 million emails using AI. Do you have some results that you can share with people, maybe from like any of your campaigns? Maybe that could be interesting for some people, and maybe talk a little bit about that. Like, how do you achieve those results? What was your process to build that campaign in specific? And then we can just jump straight into like the 2025 trends.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is, if you can see on the screen here,
Yeah.
this is just one client, right? And so, what's interesting with this client is if you scroll down here around to week 8, this is indicative of the delivery crisis that we were experiencing. So, just 4 weeks ago, we literally went in and we segmented everything we sent to Outlook and segmented everything we sent to Google. And you could just tell dramatically the difference, right? Almost literally a 10 times reply rate. So is it at that point we made the choice to start excluding Outlook, and we have for the last couple weeks, and it's just gotten us right back to where we need to be. And so when you look at these opportunities that we're creating for this client, they're then in turn have a team that is attending those meetings, that are doing follow up, they're doing other reach out, like instantly website visitors, et cetera. But this is the type of volume. And for this client, literally since August 1st, we've sent well over 2.1 million emails entirely written with AI, right? And we're
Wow.
still getting a 2%, 2.5% reply rate, which, there'll always be someone that does better. And, I've done much better on smaller campaigns, but at 2.5 million, 2.1 million emails, this is really, really hard to achieve. And so to me, it just shows that what we do works, instantly works. It can be done at scale. It can be done across time zone and countries. And you're going to have good weeks and you're going to have bad weeks, but you've got to start to figure out how to adjust to the dynamics of the industry, right? And you can't send the same email. I think for this client, we have 2,100 email accounts across Microsoft and Google,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And there are definitely days where it's very obvious that Microsoft is not working. There's days where, we wish we wouldn't have chose Google, but that's just the business, right? And part of I think what helps us is we webhook every single reply that comes in. As you saw on the screen, there's a lot of them, right?
Right.
Not just interested replies, but all replies, right? And that matters to me because it's indicative of the fact that we hit the inbox if we're getting a reply.
Right.
And so one of the things we've started doing, and you guys have done this as well, is like when you're in Instantly today, you can see who the ESP is, right, from the sender. And so we also capture that on the receiver side now, and we pull that data down in the webhook. And so in real time, and we push that data to an Airtable, then I can see and look at campaigns that are to this scale and understand, at least for a Google and Microsoft infrastructure setup, like what is working. Like I can see in real time, like every email that I send from Outlook to Proofpoint, for example, is bouncing. Or every email that goes from Google to Mimecast, I have zero replies for those emails, right? And so when you start to appreciate and understand that our job when we're supporting clients to make adjustments in real time. And I think I would tie that back to your point about copy, right? When I first started doing this, I spent weeks trying to find the perfect copy, and I just sent it over and over again. And I remember booking 2 different months, 200 calls with 180
Wow.
email accounts, right? Like it was just a ridiculous high number. And
Yeah.
I used the same copy. I spin taxed it a little bit, but there was no AI and anything like that. Um, I don't know that I could achieve that today with 1,800 email accounts, right? It's just a completely different world. That being said, copy is what's changing, right? You're right. People have short attention spans. I mean, even in the corporate world, right? You talk about, balancing your life. You also have to balance in the corporate world that, a lot of the people that we're reaching out to, they have teams, they have bosses. Uh, like you and I, we communicate on Slack, right? There's so many different channels that
Right.
take away from that attention span. And I think to me, it's not just that there's other channels like text messages and Slack and Facebook and LinkedIn and every other way, WhatsApp, every other way you can get a message. Not just that. It's also the fact that what is the lowest priority on the scale of people's things of daily priorities? I guarantee you, nowhere in that priority list is the cold email that I sent, right?
Right.
And so I have to figure out, if anything, how not to be an intrusion into their day, how to be relevant to what I'm sending them on a daily basis, how to not be a pain in the butt by sending them 19 emails over 6 days, how to respect the fact that some people just aren't interested. But if I do my job well, they're going to say no nicely. And that's honestly how I judge our replies more than anything. There's always people that are going to say no nicely. I mean, I've seen some of the funniest responses ever, and I'm sure you have too, right? The way people will say no to you, but the
Yeah.
vast majority of people that say no to us, they say it nicely. They say no thanks, not a good time. Check back with me in 6 months. That's when you know you have a good campaign. When you get a lot
Mhm.
of good no's, you know you're doing well. Because I think what people forget is you're sending a virtual postcard. Whether you're doing it for yourself, or you're doing it for your client. You're sending a virtual postcard. You should be doing it to exactly who you want to, because you've done a good job on the lead generation side. And you are making an impression, whether it be about your own business or your customer's business. And if people send emails like the ones that I get in my inbox, I feel sorry for their customers, because they're not professional. They're not reflective of what people expect. And I guess that's the one thing. I've had customers leave, right? Customers churn, it's normal. But I've never had a customer leave and say what you did was unprofessional, right? Like they come back and they know that regardless of whether I got them the meetings that they wanted, they know that the emails that I sent were representative of the brand, that were positive. And if you do that, you may not get all the replies you want, you may not get all the meetings you want, but you're going to leave that impression. People are going to need you 6 months later or 3 months later. They're going to go back to their inbox. They're going to find you. They're going to book a call or make a purchase, and that drives the value of what we do. But you have to do that. I just don't believe anymore the gimmicky stuff that we've seen for the last couple of years will survive, because the AI on the backside with Microsoft and Google is just too good to allow
Right.
anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I think people don't realize that today spam filters are context based, and that is something that has been changing. Because before, when, for example, you will check for spam triggers in your copy, it will just be a list of spam triggers, right? But what we're noticing is that now they're context based. So, for example, you're fine with adding stuff like opportunity on an email, right, and landing on the inbox, as long as what you're offering and the entire copy is relevant to your audience, right? Um, and that is why I think it has to be strongly connected with the offer. So it's no longer only about one component, only like deliverability. I think it's now like you have to have everything nailed down together, which is the deliverability component, the copy, the infrastructure or the technical aspect, like Instantly or whichever provider you use, your email infrastructure, and also the offer, right, has to be very strong. So if you don't have those four in place all together, if you're just missing one of them, your chances to land on the inbox increase a lot. And well, as we all know, like there are like good months and bad months with Google and Outlook. I think the past months have been a little bit difficult when emailing Outlook. So whoever is right now emailing Outlook and not getting replies is just because Outlook is just being stricter lately. It doesn't mean like it's over. Actually, we saw a similar situation in 2022. For like 2 months, Outlook was being extremely strict with deliverability. But they're just adjusting their spam filters. We've seen some crazy situations where, because we are always testing this stuff, right? Where some emails coming from Microsoft itself into my Outlook inboxes are landing on the spam folder, which is crazy. It's like if Microsoft is sending me an email in my Outlook inbox and that is going to spam, it means that Outlook spam filters are just going cuckoo, right? So it's gonna get better. They're just adjusting their spam filters, and I think it's a good thing at the end of the day, because we all want to receive less spam and more high quality emails. So I think what these main providers are doing is they're just pushing you and I and everyone out there to just improve their game, send more high quality emails, emails that deliver value, emails that make sense to people. So I think that's what we all need to focus on, right? Um, do you have any recommendations in terms of spam detection, or like any like insights that come to your mind in terms of spam detection that right now are related to AI, because you're an AI expert. So how else do you think AI comes into place there, and what can we do today in order to land on the inbox using AI too? So
Yeah, two great questions. So, I will tell, and I tell this to some of my clients, right? I mean, my background before doing cold email was managing data science teams who built predictive models, um, really even before Chat GPT existed, right? But the concepts of predictive models haven't changed, right? And so when I say the term predictive model, why that's important is because when you look at tools like ChatGPT from OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Gemini, et cetera, right? They are all large language models, right? We hear them constantly referred to as LLMs. And large language models, on a very granular basis, are built on what's called natural language processing. And so these tools, at a very high capacity today, have the ability to contextually, to your point, understand the email that you're sending. And what I like to explain to people more than anything is if you have a Google account right now and you get an email, Google is smart enough now to read that email and actually write the reply for you. And so if it can do that, then you have to understand that it can read the email, right? And it contextually understands it well enough to tell you what to say back, right? So that is how good the AI is, right? And it's only the beginning, right? It's only continue to get better. So the fact that the same people who build that technology to reply to your email for you don't have the foresight to use that same technology to read every email we send and determine whether or not it's spam is asinine to assume otherwise at this point, right? It just really is, right? And so, and Microsoft, same thing, right? I mean, if you don't know, in the beginning they invested about 10 billion in OpenAI, and so today they continue to work closely with OpenAI, integrate into their core products aspects of OpenAI. So, they're very well versed as well. And so those are, I mean, they're not everybody we send to. I mean, we still send to some people at Zoho and custom mail servers and stuff like that, but they're the bulk, right? And at the end of the day, their capabilities in AR are at this point are well beyond what we imagine, and more likely in the area of agents, corporate type deployments, et cetera, right? So as we look at how we approach email, this is the long-winded answer to your question, right? Number one, it will change all the time, right? That's the unfortunate part. If we think we can go back to just sending the same copy over and over again and hoping for the best, then I just don't believe it's possible. I have been creating copy with AI. I feel like I'm pretty advanced when it comes to AI. And I have done it across multiple industries at this point, especially most of my clients today are tech and SaaS. So I get access to a lot of different tools and a lot of different ways to try things, video, without video, just all kinds of components, right? And even some of the best performing copies we've ever had, they get what I call imprinted, meaning at some point, even though we're changing a lot of variables dynamically and every email is 100% unique, at some point, sometimes it's 3 weeks, sometimes it's 3 months, they just fall off a cliff.
Okay.
And there is no way to explain that other than the fact that, you can write a novel and at some point create a movie with Chat GPT. So of course they can, even if I switch my copy uniquely with AI, they're still able to pick up on the fact that, I am sending that at some kind of scale. So our only plan going forward is we know the techniques that work. We have a good idea of, in this case, we should probably use a lead magnet. In this case, we might offer an executive summary. We may use a CTA that says, can we send you a personalized video? We have a lot of different techniques, right? We have different styles. And, I would say more professional CIO, CTO, CFO type audience. We're generally a little bit longer and more detailed. If I'm selling something on the front of social media, it's usually shorter and quicker. Um, and so, we will have to constantly adapt. And I don't think we'll go into a campaign anymore where we don't have multiple, A, B, and probably even a C They're still going to be 100% dynamic. They're still going to, inject personalized information. They're still going to be professional, but we're going to have to continue to measure the results of that copy. And I think even more importantly, that copy in relation to who we're sending to and who we're sending from, because unfortunately, it's different models that are doing this. For Google, it's Gemini. For Microsoft, it's some version of a GPT model, and then not even counting like Anthropic and some of those other ones that are working with other big type companies. So I don't know that there's an easy answer. I don't know that the days of old will ever come back. I do know that um, if you're willing to put forth the time and the effort and you're willing to do what it takes to get results for your clients, then you'll do what it takes to get results for your clients.
Right. I agree with you on that one. Also, one thing we've noticed, and this is like a 2025 prediction, is we're already seeing Apple Mail and some apps I think one of them is called Superhuman, and there are more coming, right? That are basically summarizing people's emails.
Mhm.
And so that way, like when you open your phone and you see all of your emails, you just see like summaries of all of your emails. So you can just open the ones that are more relevant. So for instance, if you were to send me an email, some of these applications literally just say stuff like, Josh wants to do a webinar with you, rather than a 3-paragraph explaining why we should do a webinar together. And then it's just pretty straightforward. So it just cuts all the fluff, and it just goes straight to the point. And I think this is why the offer and the deliverability component are going to become more and more critical, and also the copy, right? Because if people are not delivering value in their copy, Google, Apple, I'm pretty sure Google will introduce this soon. They will just be very cutthroat with all of this. And if you are just not being clear in your emails and bringing anything of value, people are just going to see like a summary of the email that is going to be very straightforward. This person from this company wants this from you, or is offering you this right now. And then it's just very straightforward. Does this add value to my company? Is this making my company grow? No? Okay, delete it. Very simple, very straightforward. What else do you think could make a difference from a technical standpoint? Because I've seen you using, in terms of deliverability, like doing inbox placement tests and so on. Do you have anything that you do in-house in order to make things better, or just to have more control over what's going on?
Yeah, so we do inbox placement testing, right? And that's still early on, right? I mean, I still think I see value in it. I wouldn't say I don't think at this point that it's a do or die indicator of whether you should or shouldn't send, right? Because there's still going to be inboxes that are set up on your behalf. Let's just say it's for Google, for Outlook, right? I don't think it's that simple anymore, honestly. I think, and I've seen that in the data, that if I send an email to Pepsi, it might make it through, but if I send it to Coke and they both have Outlook, it might not make it through, right? And that's I send to a lot of Fortune 500s, right? And you talk about scrutiny when it comes to getting to the inbox, right? So I just don't think it's that simple. I think at a grander scale, it's very informative. Like if email boxes are burned, domains are burned, etc. What we do is we literally have tables. I have a table of every instantly account I have. It is mapped directly into this table. Within that table are all of our warm up settings. Is accounts disconnect? So is it connected, disconnected? Just all of the checkpoints along the way, right? To make sure that everything's functional, because it's easy to log in instantly when you have 30 accounts and scroll down and everything's at 100% warm up, everything looks good. When you have like, I don't know, I think we're at 6,000 email accounts we're managing right now. It's a different perspective, right? You have to look at things at a granular level, but also at a high level. And so, because when you have 6,000 accounts, accounts just disconnect. It's nobody's
Right.
fault. It just happens. So you have to monitor them. So we look at, because that's just a good example. If we don't do our job, we're losing capacity every day there by not sending. So I think the next thing we do is we go in and we do domain and IP testing on every single domain every single day. so we can monitor that and just understand, like, did we hit a blacklist? Not all blacklists are created equal. I mean, there's this one like Finnish blacklist that I see I hit almost all the time, and it's like, and I don't send email in Finland, so I don't really care, right? But
Yeah.
it pops up, so like you have to treat that data for what it's worth, right? And measure performance. And then we look at, like I mentioned this earlier, but the only thing I care about every day is the amount of replies we get, right? Of course I care about interested replies and meetings, but from a measurement perspective, the one trigger for me that seems to always tell me something's wrong or something's going great is how many replies we get,
Right.
right? And so, like, I have a process. So if I feel something's really, really slow, then I'll go back into instantly and turn on the out of offices so I can make sure the out of offices come in. Because that's a good indicator. If I'm not getting any out of offices, then something's wrong, right? And then we start to diagnose it. But we monitor all that with tables that are pushed to Airtable that we can look at, dashboards that we can understand what's going on. And then we take action, right? So, um, I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I think the other thing we do is just we're very intentional about building lead capacity around sending capacity, right? It's so simple, but you would be surprised. I talk to a lot of people. You'd be surprised how many people have capacity to send every day that just don't do a good enough job managing the lead volume and are burning that capacity. Like it seems like every month we're able to send less. Like it used to be 50 or whatever. I'm making up numbers, but like I don't have an account where I send more than 25 emails a day anymore, right? And so that's less capacity than I had a year ago. And so there will never be a day unless we just, you know, there's an earthquake in Phoenix or something. I don't know. I'm being hypothetical, but and I don't wish that upon any of my neighbors here. But there will never be a day where we're not sending to our full capacity because that capacity is already paid for, right?
Yeah.
And so, a quick spreadsheet, you can understand I need this many leads to send this many emails, right? And those are the basics, right? But when you're doing that for one client, we're producing hundreds of thousands of leads a day, all through clay tables, all through multiple levels of verification, AI copy, a lot of different variables, right? It definitely a different perspective than when you're running, 30 email accounts.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, the reason why I'm asking also is because, there are some advanced users like yourself that you guys run inbox placement tests, and we actually just built a feature that should help you a lot with that. And we are about to disrupt the market. So anyone listening to this, either today or tomorrow, you will see a surprise in your Instantly account. Use an icon on the left panel that will allow you to do more, that and much more, right? I don't want to overshare, but it's going to be very disruptive. And if you're watching this in a week or 2 weeks' time when it's fully launched, well, yeah, congratulations. I think that should make your life easier. But yeah, very excited. So, how about we talk a little bit about something that I think will make a big difference in 2025, which I know you're already you doing and using, and I think it's going to become more of a trend, which is deploying AI agents to write copy. I've seen you posting about it on LinkedIn. I think for anyone who's not following you, I think they should probably follow you on LinkedIn. You share some really nice content, very interesting stuff. So yeah, how about you tell us a little bit about that? What is your process? How does it work? How can you write copy for every single prospect?
Yeah, that to me, that's the most exciting thing we've worked on in the last couple of weeks. So at the end of the day, what we do is we go in and we use a tool called Octave today. I mean, to be fair, there are, if you have very, very unique technical capabilities, which some of our instantly partners do, right? You can build agents in a lot of different ways, but and not all agents are equal. You can make the argument that if you write a prompt in a clay table, that in some
Right.
definition is probably an agent. But the agents I'm talking about is we went in and we're building out highly detailed playbooks around our customers or leads ICPs, right? And so we understand what their profile is, and then we go in And we can identify reference customers. We can identify specific aspects of the solutions we're trying to solve, or speak to, for example, like let's just say I'm selling our service cold email. I could identify messaging specifically for a chief marketing officer that's struggling with lead generation, for example. So very if then that, right? And that in and of itself is very powerful. But then when you start to be able to, and earlier I described we have subsets of copy that we'll use. So, different professional, well-known writer styles that other people use that are very effective, very lead magnet case study. I've done this for this company and I can do this for you because you're in the same industry, right? All of the same templates we all see, right? We definitely use some of those because they work, right? They're professional, they work. And then we have some of our own, but we've turned all of those into agents. And so what I mean by turning them into agents is that, like you would with any large language model, we prompted them to say what we want to say. We prompted them to inject relevant variables like, a LinkedIn profile description. Like I would tell people, and here's my little nugget, I use people's company LinkedIn profile descriptions all the time because they're not generic and they're always written by the company, and they're usually written by the most prolific person at the company, and they just create great opening lines, right? If you can get AI to summarize those in a professional way, because they're just not like the website. I don't know why, but people when they, and I wrote mine, so I guess I know why, but when they write a company LinkedIn description, it's usually a little bit more personal. It's usually a little bit, it's usually written by somebody who has a lot of passion for the company. So I use that, right? So imagine if you had an agent that can inject anything you want, right? And it can inject that data, but it can inject like I do cold email. I'm reaching out to a chief marketing officer, but this agent understands that chief marketing officer works at this type of company that has this types of problems that can, uh, needs this type of service to support this type of resolution they're trying to come to. Like I'm trying to explain it in a very basic way, but essentially that's what it comes down to. And these agents can go in and in real time, using APIs, take data from 1,000, 10,000 leads and write 100% unique copy and do it
Yeah.
well. Now, I've been able to do that for a while. A lot of us have, right? But the difference is, we're prompting it based off something we're injecting from a clay table or from a Google sheet, right? And that's very static data. With these agents, it's essentially consuming everything it knows about the solution it's trying to sell, and then tying the value proposition of that very specifically to the lead that you're reaching out to. And what that does is it just goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. It's about creating relevancy and professionalism. And there's no doubt that the emails that I send with these agents, Felipe, I don't care what large language model looks at them. They're probably the most relevant emails I've ever created, right? And that's the point you made, which is, when you're not selling something that's relevant and your context in your email is not, indicative of that, then you're going to hit spam. I don't worry about hitting spam with these agents. So pretty excited. I mean, we've deployed a real live campaign with them and it's running now. We just did it this weekend. So the capability is really new. And I think what I'm excited about is with this campaign, I literally split test them when I build them out, and I push them into instantly with unique identifiers. And what I envision in 2025 is going to be entirely possible. It's just I'm deploying for clients highly productive copy agents over and over again. But it's not just I'm deploying them, it's that they're looking at the results and instantly they're seeing what's working and not working. Like we all know the concept that dynamic ESP adjusting, right? Outlook to Outlook, Google to Google. I predict we're going to be talking about the next time we meet how we're no longer copywriters and campaign managers, more that we're, because between tools like Octave Clay, Instantly, etc., we're building agents that are writing copy, that are sending emails, and then they're dynamically adjusting campaigns and ESPs and senders based off copy, domain rate, all these variables that determine how whether you're successful or not. But the copy part is cool because that's been hard to do. Like, up to this point, we've been running thousands of rows and just pushing them, directly into instantly from Clay, and which we'll still do, but to be able to do that, for copy, it's just a new level of A/B testing, right? It's really like A/B testing on steroids with professional copy, with highly enriched leads, with highly professional leads, and it just gets us closer to spend time focusing on getting results for our client and less time on guessing what we think will work and won't work, right?
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we've seen this new product category popping out recently. I'm also very excited about it, to be honest. We are actually working with Octave on building an integration together. Also, there are two more providers. One of them is Common Room, and the other one is called Evergrowth. And they all do pretty much the same, which is ICP finding. So they ask you like 10 questions, and then they find the ideal ICPs. It's not just one, they find several of them. They
Yeah.
find all of the data for them, they scrape the web, and then make a unique message for each one of them. I find this fantastic, to be honest. It's what I think it's an issue that a lot of people who are doing cold email have, because um, often they land on the inbox, but like just people just don't reply back to them. And then when you review their campaign and you ask them, okay, do you know what is your value proposition? And they're like, yeah, I sell drills. And I'm like, no, people actually need a hole in their wall. They don't need a drill. Why? So they actually don't understand clearly what who to sell to and how to sell it, and then they expect cold emails to be like the magical solution for all of the problems, right? And then you have these tools that help you uncover how to sell your product and to who to sell it to. I think it's just gonna make it easier and easier in 2025. So I'm actually very excited about it. Pretty innovative. But for those who, let's say, don't like, they're not so technical right now and they would like to start uncovering better their ICPs. I think here is a good question. Some ha 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 ha, great name. Is there a good GPT to use for this? Like, do you have any or any prompt that you would recommend for non-technical people to uncover their niche, to uncover who to target, how to target them? Maybe not on a one-on-one basis, like these new tools are coming out, but yeah, any recommendations?
Yeah, so I would tell you there's two types of ways to use large language models, right? There's the chat interface that they all have, and then there's the AI, calls you make via API, right? So when you're in a, large table or whatever, and you're calling GPT, for example, 10,000 rows at a time, right? So different approaches. But I cannot overemphasize enough how much time I spent purely on a daily basis just in ChatGPT, right? So I even shared just a couple of days ago, like ChatGPT in and of itself, and all the models are good. I'm just prone to ChatGPT because number one, it's on my desktop. Number two, they keep innovating, right? So they literally just 2 days ago allowed me to connect ChatGPT to my terminal on my Mac. Now people think, why is that important, right? Why does that matter? Well, most models are built with Python, right? Or some variation of Python, and being able to execute that kind of code just gives you superpowers, right? So all that is to say, I would use ChatGPT, Anthropic, Google, Gemini, something, and just ask it questions. Like one of my clients, he's a great guy. He's like, I had a therapy session the other day with Anthropic, and it was pretty darn good. I mean, they're that. I mean, I'm not over exaggerating. GPT-4, O1, the preview one, that the one that can reason and think, uh, it can build you an entire go-to-market strategy if you want to, right? So it doesn't really matter to what degree you use these tools for. Experiment with them, use them, ask them questions. I mean, I'm not going to say make life or death decisions, but if you had to write a will, they could write it for you. So, there's a lot of capability there, and start there. And then when you figure out how to do that on a one-to-one basis, then doing that at scale is just prompting the APIs to do the same thing. It's no different. It's just doing it. My favorite thing I post, and I just do this once in a while, I'll go into GPT and I'll be like, build a lead list of, you know, um, chief technology officers in the UK where they have revenue of 2 to 5 million. that have had some form of series funding, seed funding. And I am not joking. It will build the lead list, right?
Okay.
Now it won't build more than 1,000 of them, but it'll build the lead list, right? And so you can do some elite level lead generation, 1,000 leads at a time in ChatGPT alone, right? So there's no bar. You have to be curious. You have to play with it. You have to want to use it. But the long-winded answer to the question is, I'm still a huge fan of OpenAI. I think they have the brightest future at this point, even though I still use Google and Anthropic as well.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I think this from Race is pretty much the same question. Like, how do you customize emails on instantly? Do you manually go in each time? I think you don't manually need to go in at all at this point. I think like Josh said, you can just import that list of contacts into GPT, and just start talking to GPT, like helping you turn any data points that you have from that sheet into a relevant variable, and then you can use that variable into your emails. So, for example, if you have the industry variable from your data, because it depends what kind of data you have, then you can ask GPT, right, this is the offer that I have. So how is this offer relevant for this specific industry? What are the three main solutions that people in this industry with this position find relevant for the solution that I offer? And trust me, even though the answer might be generic and not extremely personalized, it will be better than nothing, right? Because if you, for example, let's say you sell um, marketing services, right? Whatever, like something very broad. And then in your copy, you mentioned that, let's say you ask ChatGPT, I want you to make a copy or a message that resonates with marketing directors and uses the same jargon they use and tells them which metrics they can improve for the solution that I offer. This is the solution I offer. This is what I do. Trust me, GPT will do a fantastic job quoting the exact metrics that are relevant for that specific position, right? And it's going to sound way better than just like nothing, right? So that is part of being relevant. How to resonate with people, right? Of course, Josh is bringing it to the next level. He's using agents. I think someone in the Facebook community is asking which one was the other tool, Evergrowth. Yeah, it's called Evergrowth. You have common rooms too, and you have Octave, which is the one that Josh is actively using. But there are the three new tools that have come out in this product category. I don't know how to call the category, but it's I think it's product marketing fit. It's just a whole new category that these guys have invented. So next question. Let's see. I think this is more related to volume from Travis. I bought 300 domains, currently building out the funnels and going to start at scale. So what do your recommendations will you have for Travis, Josh, in order to make sure that he lands on the inbox and gets results? Because I think he's gonna. I mean, it's not like he's gonna run into issues, but like you just said, it's a whole different game when you start scaling your volume, which is when it's probably relevant to work with agencies like yourself because you know very well how to handle very large volume. But what recommendations would you have for someone who is starting to like bring up their volume in order to keep getting results?
Yeah. So number one, I mean, start slow, right? You don't want to, you want to warm up a minimum, in my opinion, of at least 2 weeks. Um, if you're managing, that's 900 email accounts if you're following recommended best practice, right? So that's a lot to manage, right? And so when you start to get into that type of setup, you start to figure out like I'm probably not going to do DKIM and SPF on 900 accounts on my own. Hopefully you bought them through instantly as DFY service, right? So you don't have to do any of that. But then you need to start paying attention to domains and email accounts. You need to send low volume to start. And then I think the other thing is when you have that much infrastructure, you should experiment. You have no excuse, right? Like if you put 900 email accounts or 300 domains and you put all your eggs in one basket on one piece of copy, then, I wouldn't do that, right? So I think I would utilize, you know, it doesn't matter if you have 5 email accounts or 900, right? You should diversify. I think that's the important thing. And then start studying I learn everything from being in WhatsApp groups and paying attention to LinkedIn on people that do this that are better than me, right? And they all manage stuff like this at scale. And so that's how I get better. I just communicate, stay in touch with, and learn from people who manage things at scale because it just requires a different approach.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Absolutely. And don't forget to verify your lead list. I think that's
Yeah,
a
always.
common mistake. That it's very basic, but trust me, we see it happening all the time. Use a good email verification tool. At Instantly, we have one of the best email verifiers out there. We try to build a good one, but there are some other great email verifiers. Bounceban, Listmint, Debounce is another one. There are several out there, but try to do a mix of standard plus catch-all verification. At Instantly, we do both, so our verifier mixes both processes, but you have a couple of them that, if you combine them, you can verify lots of emails and reduce your bounce rate. I think bounce rate is going to be key as you scale your volume. But yeah, next question from Juvrai. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. How are custom SMTPs working as compared to typical Gmail and Outlook inboxes?
Yeah, it's a great question. I use a few. I mean, at the end of the day, I hate to break the news to anybody, but there is no one solution that's going to consistently always work.
Yeah.
Right. I just don't believe that's possible anymore. And we talked about that in the kind of the beginning of the two you mentioned at the end. They're billion-dollar companies, and we've had problems with both this year. Right. So, I do think there's some custom SMTP services I would not use. I'm not going to throw their names out here on this. But there's some that I do use, right? But in all fairness, I've never used one longer than a couple of months because at this point, and I have a few right now that are doing really well, and so I hope that changes. But the vast majority of the ones I've used up to this point is they do very, very well in the beginning and then they fall off, right? I will say consistently with Google and Microsoft, they have their issues like we've had recently with Outlook, but they seem to be more consistent, right? So, you know, I trust the providers that I do business with. I do business with them because I think they have integrity and they're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to use SMTPs to offer a third solution. I preach to people that I coach and I preach within what we do is diversity at the end of the day. You need a little bit of all three right now, in my opinion. And when one is not going well, at least you have two that do, and you can redistribute your volume to what's working. And I think diversity is what matters. What SMTP fills that diversity need for you, I think is really comes down to your evaluation of what you think consistently works for your clients or for yourself.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we at Instantly we have Google email infrastructure, so you can set up the email accounts with 2 clicks, literally. But even then, we still recommend using some other email infrastructure providers because of the same reason Josh just mentioned. We don't think that there is one infrastructure that is going to work 100% of the time. Whoever tells you we have the best email infrastructure out there is probably being biased. But yeah, I think if you were to mix them, try to like Maildoso is a great one. Nikita, their founder, is a great guy. Also, for Outlook infrastructure, you have several resellers. You can check in our Facebook community, in the Instantly Facebook community. You will find some resellers, and also, I think I can share this already, but this month, by the end of this month, beginning of next month, we'll be launching Outlook and private SMTP email infrastructure in the mix. We have been focusing a lot in improving our Google infrastructure, which is why we haven't launched the other two, because we are always focused on doing one thing right at a time. And I think we polished the process a little bit. I think Josh has been like a little bit our guinea pig when we were launching the Google infrastructure. We had some hiccups, but I think we polished it well enough by now. But yeah, I think that's spot on. Just mix them up. Don't rely on just one. Issues happen from time to time. I think what matters the most is um, how accountable they can be when issues occur. You know, if they respond fast, if they can solve your issues fast, if they can compensate you fast enough. I think that's very important. Next question from Alexei. Which strategy would you recommend for basically using syntax? Varying the same phrases like A and B or personalization in Clay, even if the AI is not perfect now. So how do you actually build your syntax, Josh?
Yeah, so I don't use Spintax. So I would tell you I don't agree with the assessment of what he asked. I mean nothing's perfect, right? But you kind of hear this sentiment from people that AI is not good enough. AI is good enough, you're just not doing it good enough. That's the problem, right? So I don't spin tax. I can tell you AI is good enough right now that if you want to put a spin tax into a GPT prompt to create the spin tax for you, that's how good the AI is at this point. So I just don't do it. I mean, I feel like uh, statistically, in my opinion, there's still not enough of variation in spin tax. Like, would you rather spend tax 16 words or all 82 that are in the email, right? And to me, it's all a math game, right? So again, I know that you have to have the capability, the technology, be able to spend the money to do what we do, right? So back to his question, which I do think is a fair question, right? I would spend tax as much as I can if I was just doing spend tax, and then more importantly, I would do it very diligently and professionally. And now's my time to make a plug for Instantly. You can do that directly in Instantly, and they can help you do it for you. And it's very easy and it's very good, and it's much easier than trying to figure it out yourself.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, we just have an option instantly in the campaigns, click spin
Yeah.
text and it just builds it for you. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it just comes down to testing different stuff. I think when you have a guru that says this is what works, you should get a little bit worried. I think I really like your approach, Josh, because you are data driven and yeah, you're just inviting people to test different things. And we totally agree with that motion. I think you should test with a spin text and without spin text this infrastructure with this other one and then draw your own conclusions.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just a matter of diversity and just testing different things.
Yeah, can I say
So
something on that point too? Because I think, I'm pretty definitive about a lot of things I said, but the other side of it, there is no absolutes in this business, right?
yeah,
That's the one thing, right? Anybody that comes along and tells you like, and you see this a lot in marketing, right? Like, come pay me $1 million for this class, and I'm going to teach you the only way that works. There is no absolutes in cold email. I mean, there's a few things you definitely shouldn't do, like send 500 emails on a personal Gmail account, and expect results. But there's pretty much no absolutes because it's constantly changing and constantly evolving. And I think to that point, right? And this is what I've learned is every time I think I figured it out, it changes, right? Like I think I have the golden ticket and then the next day it changes, right? So that's really kind of the most important thing is just be willing to learn and evolve all the time because I've yet to see anything that just always works. When I think it's working great, then it stops. So you just have to be very nimble, very flexible, very willing to evolve.
right. Yeah, I agree. Question from Swati. How do you identify if a prospect is using Outlook, Google, or other email provider? So how do you currently do it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy because now you just upload it into Instantly and you guys do it for us. So that would be the simple answer, right? And that was kind of cool because that wasn't a very public deployment, right? It just
Yeah.
appeared one day, one weekend. Uh, but yeah, and I mean that's one way you can do it pretty straightforward. Is as soon as you put it in Instantly, they're going to tell you now within the UI what the ESP is of the receiver. I mean, I would tell you if you wanted to do it kind of prior to that, if you wanted to exclude, you can do that via APIs. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
straightforward how to do it via. And there's multiple services that'll provide that to you via API.
Yeah, I noticed that right now, and I appreciate the mention. We're building so many features that at this point it feels like everything's a promo instantly. But I swear, guys, we did not pay Josh to like mention any of this. It just we're just building the features that he's just asking us to build. So yeah. But anyway, so we've noticed that most of email verifiers, they also tell you which email infrastructure a contact uses. So today, I think it's not, I mean, yeah, pretty much like it's very easy and affordable to do it. We obviously do it for free, but if you're running your email list in any email verifier, most of them should tell you what provider contact uses. And that way you can exclude, like, let's say, all the Outlook accounts from your campaign, or like do provider matching or for your testing. So yeah, I think this has been very insightful. It's been almost an hour. I really, really appreciate, Josh, all your insights. Is there anything else that you think before we finish that you would like to share for people? Any like message for people in general for 2025 or to improve their campaigns that you would like to share with people?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's funny you ask, because over the last probably week or two, I've kind of made one or two different posts just around what I think 2025 is going to look like. You know, and I really believe the speed at which things are happening is we're just going to continue to shift to be, and I don't know what to exactly call it at this point, but we're going to be more orchestrators more than anything, right? Just
Yeah.
orchestrating things that we used to constantly have to do ourselves, right? Are going to be more formal, more automatic, more automated is probably the right word. And I do believe, and I'm not a doomsdayer by any means, but I do believe it's going to get harder, right?
Yeah.
Like, even if it's just more volatile, right, and it's up and down, then that will make it harder. So I do believe it's going to get, I do believe it's going to get harder. And I think, the one thing that, as we look to 2025, there are things that will get easier, but I also think that there are things that will be harder, right? And you have to just be willing to adapt. I mean, I think, Felipe, if you guys had not released anything in the last 6 months and just sat back, and a lot of what you've released is around deliverability, right?
Yeah.
Aspects of deliverability. And it's because inherently for the industry, it has gotten harder the last 6 months. And so
Yeah.
um, I think that if you sit back and just expect the golden tickets, you're going to struggle. And you have to spend a lot of time really paying attention to what works, what doesn't work, and asking why. Like, often when I will share something of what I think is working, the greatest questions I get are why. Why is it working? How do you prove it? I remember something you said to me not too long ago, Felipe, which is like, it's one thing to just share, uh, to say I booked 50 meetings for a client. It's another thing to go on a webinar in front of thousands of people, or a live like this, and literally pull up your instantly live and show it, right? And you have to be able to speak to what you do, right? And be confident in what you do. But I can tell you 2 years ago, I was working for a Fortune 500 company, and I'd never sent a cold email in my life. And today I have, 25 clients in 9 different countries. A lot of them are big enterprise type clients. And it's honestly just because I'm not afraid to fail. And when I fail fast. And more importantly, like, I love the challenge of just the adaption of it all. Like, it's frustrating. Sometimes I want to bang my head against my computer. But the other side of it, I love the challenge of every day you learn something new. And I think AI brings that to you. I mean, I don't, the, some of the things that we think AI can do is kind of scary, but, at the end of the day, it will completely, I guess I'll leave it at this. The most exciting thing I've seen in the last 6 weeks, Felipe, is OpenAI and Anthropic both announced computer use.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know what that is, Google it, because basically what it comes down to is that you're going to be able to go in and type something into ChatGPT and tell it to take over your computer and do things for you, like book travel in the business world, like, go pull my instant leads, dump them in a clay table, enhance them with store leads data, use Octave, use Maildoso, all that, and program my computer with a prompt to do that. I mean, do you know how much time that's going to save me and how much
Yeah.
faster? And that is what's coming. So that's what excites me. right? And that's what I
Yeah.
mean by we're going to be orchestrators per se and innovators, and not as much, sitting in a Word doc creating copy for an hour, right?
Yeah, I agree. And it's gonna like I think you've done sales too. I've done sales too, and it's just gonna make people's lives so much easier in a way. Like I remember when I had to update the CRM every single time. Like I cannot wait for that to happen for some salespeople, where like you just prompt it out and you just tell like Anthropic or whoever it is, hey, every time I finish my meeting, take my notes from my note taker, upload that into the CRM, create a new opportunity, put the opportunity value, and just automate the entire process. So you literally just all you have to do is like call, and then just let the AI do the admin stuff, because admin can be so time consuming sometimes. But yeah, that's spot on. I really agree with you. So Josh, thank you so much once again. You are one of our experts, instantly.ai/experts, where we have a few selected experts from each category. You are one of our AI experts. What is the best way, apart from our website, to contact you, your email or maybe your website, in case anyone wants to work with you?
Yeah, contentmarketingmedia.org. So if you just go to contentmarketingmedia.org, like you said, we're on the Instantly page, and until you decide otherwise, we're in that coveted first spot. So that gives us a lot of references. So thank you for that.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, truly appreciate it once again. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today, and we'll see you in the next session.
Thank you.